Stop the wedding right now. He's not who you think he is. The voice rang through the cathedral like a lightning strike. Time seemed to stop. Every guest turned, startled, and a hush fell over the grand space. Standing at the entrance was a young black woman in a simple housekeeping uniform. Her voice trembled with emotion, but her eyes were steady. At the altar, Christopher Lane froze. Adriana Monroe, the bride, gasped and clutched her bouquet tighter. But that chaos hadn't started here. It began quietly, 2 weeks earlier. In the silent, air-conditioned corridors of the Lane estate, Maya Williams hadn't come to clean. Not really. The job she took through a cleaning agency was a cover. She came to uncover a truth buried under silk curtains and security gates. Christopher Lane, billionaire, philanthropist, and soon-to-be son-in-law of a U.S. senator, was not who he claimed to be. Once, years ago, he was just a struggling artist named Raymond, and he left Maya's sister, Kioma, pregnant and alone with 3 children he never looked back on. Maya had watched her sister suffer in silence for 9 years. She had dried her tears, fed the kids, picked up extra shifts, and when the world praised Christopher Lane's rise from nothing to empire builder, Maya tasted bile in her throat. Now, here she was, folding towels and wiping down marble counters in the mansion of the man who broke her sister and tried to erase their family from existence. Her 3rd day in, Maya was assigned to clean the East Wing. She moved quickly and quietly. She was good at blending in. But when she entered the long hallway lined with framed art, she stopped cold. One painting drew her in, a dark-skinned woman standing barefoot, holding the hands of 3 small children. Their faces were shadows, but the emotion raw, aching leapt off the canvas. Her heart pounded. She stepped closer. The style, the brushwork, the deep lines carved into the mother's face. She knew this, and in the corner, half-faded but unmistakable, R.M. Raymond M. Whale. Her knees almost gave out. Her fingers hovered over the canvas. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He kept it. What the hell do you think you're doing?" A deep voice thundered behind her. Maya spun around, eyes wide. Christopher Lane stood in the hallway, dressed in tailored slacks and a crisp button-down shirt. His face twisted in rage as he stormed toward her. I was just dusting, sir." Maya stammered, backing away. He snatched the duster from her hand and threw it down the hallway. "You don't touch that. Do you hear me?" "I wasn't going to," she began, heart racing. He stepped closer. "That hallway is off limits. You people just can't follow basic instructions, can you?" "I'm sorry. I didn't mean." Maya's voice trembled. She held her hands up. "Please. Without warning." His hand struck her shoulder, shoving her back. She stumbled, lost balance, and hit the cold marble floor hard. Pain shot through her wrist. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. Christopher loomed over her, his voice low and venomous. "You breathe a word about this to anyone about what you saw, what you think you know, and I'll make sure you regret ever walking into my house. Understand?" Maya nodded rapidly, cradling her wrist, eyes wide with fear. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to pry. It won't happen again. I go." He stared at her for a moment longer, then turned on his heel and disappeared down the corridor. Maya sat frozen on the floor, her heart thudding wildly in her chest. Her wrist throbbed. Her pride burned even more. She didn't cry. Not yet. And when the organ began to play, and the bride walked the aisle, and the preacher said, "If anyone knows any reason why these 2 should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." Maya did not hold her peace. She stepped into the light, her heart racing, her voice shaking. "Stop the wedding right now," she cried out. "He's not who you think he is." At the altar, Christopher Lane turned. His face drained of blood. The color left his knuckles where he clenched his fists. In that moment, he wasn't a billionaire, wasn't a groom, wasn't a public figure. He was just a man facing the ghost he thought he'd buried. And the ghost had a voice. If you feel for Maya, hit like and drop a comment with your city. You never know. Someone near you might be watching this too. Maya's voice still echoed in the vast cathedral. Like thunder in a room designed only for celebration, her words had cut the air with surgical precision, slicing through the illusion of perfection that hung over the Lane Monroe wedding. Eyes were wide, mouths hung open. Photographers hesitated, unsure whether to zoom in or lower their cameras. The bride, Adriana Monroe, stared at Maya with a bewildered expression, searching her face for familiarity. For answers, Christopher Lane didn't move. His jaw tightened, a twitch at the corner of his eye the only sign that the blow had landed. But for Maya, it was the first time in years she had seen him speechless, and for a moment, that was enough. Security guards began to stir, stepping toward her. Maya didn't flinch. Her knees trembled. Her chest burned with nerves, but her voice remained steady. "You owe them the truth," she said, her eyes pinned to Christopher. "You owe my sister more than silence. You owe your children a name." The 7-1. Adriana looked at Christopher now, her veil pushed back, confusion turning into something else. Fear, perhaps, or the early stages of betrayal. "Christopher, what is she talking about?" Her voice was quiet, but the microphone on her chest carried it across the entire room. Christopher blinked. Then he did what Maya expected, what she had prepared for. He smoothed his jacket, cleared his throat, and turned to the guests. "I have no idea who this woman is." Lies travel smoothly when practiced, and his lie was polished like crystal. Maya took a step forward. The guards flinched. She raised her hands to show she wasn't a threat. "My name is Maya Williams. 9 years ago, you knew my sister. Her name is Kioma. She was 26 when you left her pregnant with triplets. She raised them on her own. I helped raise them. While you were building your empire, she was cleaning floors and skipping meals to feed your kids." Gasps rippled through the pews. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Maya continued, louder now. "She never wanted your money. She never came looking for revenge. But your children saw you on television. They saw the wedding announcements. And they asked, 'Why doesn't Daddy want us?' I didn't have an answer. So I came here to get one." One of the guards reached for her elbow. She pulled away gently. "Don't touch me. I'll walk out on my own." She turned back to Christopher. "You can pretend in front of your guests. You can keep your secrets. But you can't erase the past. It already lives in 3 little faces that look exactly like you." And with that, Maya walked out of the church. Outside, the air was heavy with summer heat and tension. A few journalists rushed after her. One of them, a middle-aged black woman with a press badge from WATL News, pushed a mic toward her. "Ma'am, do you have proof of what you just said?" Maya nodded. "I do. And soon, the whole world will see it." She didn't stay to say more. Her ribs still ached from where Christopher had shoved her days ago. Her legs threatened to give out, but she kept moving. By the time she reached the taxi waiting around the corner, her hands were shaking. She climbed in and slammed the door behind her. "Drive," she whispered. The driver, a Ghanaian man in his 50s, gave her a glance in the rearview mirror. "Where to?" "Anywhere but here." He nodded and pulled away. Inside the church, chaos reigned. Adriana stood stiffly at the altar, arms crossed, her eyes boring into Christopher's skull. "Tell me it's not true," she said, low and sharp. Christopher exhaled. A practiced breath, the kind he used in investor meetings when cornered. "She's trying to ruin us. It's political. You know how this game is played." Adriana's lips parted, but no words came. Her father, Senator Monroe, had already risen from his seat in the front row. He walked briskly up the aisle, his eyes cold as steel. "We'll discuss this later," the senator growled under his breath, brushing past them both. "For now, smile. The media is still filming." Adriana turned back to Christopher. Her smile was gone. "Did you ever think you could lie forever?" He looked at her, the first crack appearing in his expression. "I didn't think they'd find me." Adriana stepped back from him, and in that step, something unspoken shattered. Meanwhile, across the city, Kioma stood frozen in her living room. She had been watching the live stream on her sister's old iPad, trying to summon the courage to tell the kids what Maya was doing. Zoe sat beside her, braiding her doll's hair. Carter drew pictures on a notebook. Anaya napped, her teddy bear tucked under her chin, and then Maya's voice came through the speakers. "Stop the wedding right now." Kioma dropped the tablet. It clattered to the floor. The screen cracked down the middle like glass beneath a storm. She grabbed Zoe and held her tightly. Zoe looked up. Was that Aunt Maya? Kioma couldn't answer. Her throat was dry. Her heart pounded in her ears. What had Maya done? She sat there for several long minutes, paralyzed. Then she moved. She called Maya's phone, straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. Finally, she called the lawyer, the old friend of their father's who had helped Maya compile the documents. "Tell me she didn't," Kioma said, skipping the greeting. "She did," the lawyer replied calmly. "And from what I hear, she did it with her head held high." Kioma slumped into the couch. "It wasn't her fight. She made it hers." He paused. "And now it's yours again." That night, while Atlanta buzzed with rumors, hashtags, and media speculation, Maya returned home to find her sister waiting. Kioma stood by the door, arms folded, her eyes dark with fear and fury. "You went to the wedding," she said flatly. Maya nodded. "Yes, you humiliated him in front of the world. He earned it." Kioma closed her eyes. "You made us a target. You have no idea what kind of people they are." "I don't care," Maya snapped. "They don't get to silence you anymore. Or the kids. They deserve a father, even if he's a coward." Silence fell between them. Then Kioma, quieter now, asked, "What did he say?" Maya's voice broke. "He said he didn't know me." Kioma flinched, but not at the lie. At how deeply it mirrored everything she'd feared for 9 years. The headlines broke before dawn. "Billionaire's secret love child scandal disrupts Monroe Lane wedding." Who is Maya Williams? Maid or messenger of truth? Id jester, triplets and lies, Christopher Lane's past exposed. By 7 a.m., Maya's phone had already rung 18 times. Journalists, talk show bookers, a podcast producer from NPR, even a lawyer claiming to represent concerned donors to Christopher Lane's political PAC, left a voicemail that ended with, "We strongly encourage silence." She silenced the phone and poured herself a cup of black coffee. Her hands were still unsteady, but her heart was steady as stone. Across the room, Kioma sat hunched on the edge of the worn-out couch, staring into the distance. Her expression was unreadable, somewhere between rage, exhaustion, and the fear only a mother knows. The triplets hadn't yet woken. "You said it would be quiet," Kioma murmured. "You said you'd deliver the letter. That's all." "I lied," Maya said softly, without regret. "I'm not strong like you," Kioma whispered. "I've spent the last 9 years trying not to fall apart. And I've spent the last 9 years watching you do it," Maya replied. "Piece by piece, with a smile so the kids wouldn't see. You're stronger than you think." Kioma turned her head. Their eyes met. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on the door. Maya moved instinctively, placing her body slightly between Kioma and the entryway. Through the peephole, a tall, clean-shaven man in a gray suit, early 50s, and not smiling. "Who is it?" Maya called. "Detective Charles Emery, APD. I need to speak with Maya Williams." Kioma's face drained of color. Maya opened the door only a crack. "What's this about?" He held up a badge. "There's been a report of trespassing and public disruption during a private ceremony. Your name was provided." Maya scoffed. "Tell Christopher Lane I'll see him in court." The detective didn't flinch. "Ma'am, I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here because I've also received word that you may be in danger. Someone tried to follow you home last night. Unmarked black SUV. Your landlord saw it and reported the plates." That silenced the room. Maya opened the door wider. "You're saying Lane's people. I'm saying there are powerful folks involved in this story. They don't like messes. You stirred one. Be careful." Maya studied his face. He seemed sincere, exhausted, maybe honest. "Are you offering protection?" He shrugged. "You can file for it. I'd recommend a lawyer do that. But for now, just watch your back." As he walked away, Maya stood in the doorway for a moment, her thoughts racing. She wasn't afraid for herself. But the children? Kioma? She shut the door gently, locked it. "I knew it," Kioma said behind her. "They're coming for us." Maya turned around, chin high. "Then let them. We've got nothing left to hide." Kioma didn't respond. Instead, she walked to a small wooden chest in the corner. She unlocked it and pulled out an envelope. "These are the letters," she said. "All the ones I wrote but never sent. To him, to his parents, to whoever he became." Maya opened one. The handwriting was neat, but trembling. Each line soaked in love and heartbreak. Some letters had tear stains. "He never read these?" Maya asked. Kioma shook her head. "I never had an address. He disappeared." Maya put the letters back. "Not anymore." Meanwhile, in a penthouse overlooking Piedmont Park, Christopher Lane sat at a long mahogany dining table. His former fiancée, Adriana Monroe, had not returned his calls. Her security detail had collected her things the night before. His attorney paced the room. "Damage control is possible, but only if you get ahead of this. We draft a statement denying paternity. Say it's political sabotage." "She has my eyes," Christopher muttered. The attorney paused. "What?" He looked up slowly. "One of the children. The girl. She has my eyes." There was a silence neither of them could fill. Then Christopher stood. "Prepare the statement, but keep it soft. No character attacks. And find out who leaked this. It wasn't the maid. Someone helped her." The attorney nodded and left. As soon as the door clicked shut, Christopher walked to the sideboard, poured himself a neat bourbon, and stared at the painting over the fireplace. It was the same one Maya had found in the hallway, the woman with 3 children beneath the violet sky. He hadn't painted since that day he left Kioma. He had told himself it was part of the deal: erase the past, get the fortune, build the empire. But now the past was painting itself back into his life whether he liked it or not. In the silence, he whispered to himself, "They weren't supposed to find me." Back in South Atlanta, the triplets woke to the sound of quiet tension. Zoe rubbed her eyes. "Is today the wedding?" 8. Kioma knelt down beside her. "It was yesterday, baby. Did he come see us?" Carter asked. "No," Maya said gently. "But he heard us." Anaya blinked. "Is he mad?" Kioma couldn't answer. Maya did. "I don't know, sweetie. But sometimes, when people are scared, they act angry first." Zoe sat up straighter. "What happens now?" Maya glanced at her sister. Then back at the children. "Now," she said, "we tell the world what really happened, and we don't let anyone erase you again." Zoe smiled. "Can I draw him a picture?" Maya nodded, her throat tightening. "You already did." "I do." That afternoon, Maya emailed scanned copies of the old letters, photographs, and Raymond's original sketchbook pages to a small but respected news site known for investigative reporting. She signed the message with her full name, not as a maid, not as a whistleblower, but as a witness, as the truth. Christopher Lane hadn't slept. He stood in his study, the morning light stretching long across the Persian rug, his bourbon glass untouched since the night before. His phone vibrated for the 12th time in an hour, but he ignored it. Every message was the same: lawyers, PR teams, damage control, everyone scrambling to cover the hole Maya Williams had blown in his spotless reputation. He walked toward the window and watched the city of Atlanta move on as if nothing had changed. Joggers in Piedmont Park, delivery trucks humming along Peachtree. But something had changed. For the first time in nearly a decade, someone had spoken his old name aloud in public. Raymond Moyle, a name he had scrubbed from every record, every database, every search result. He closed his eyes, remembering the first time he signed his new name. Christopher Lane, adopted son of Harold Lane. real estate magnate, who had plucked him from obscurity and given him a new life under one condition: you sever all ties to the past. And he had, until yesterday. He turned from the window and stared at the painting again. The one Maya had recognized. He'd meant to destroy it after that encounter. After he shoved her, after she fell and apologized like he was the one who had been wronged. But he hadn't burned the canvas. He couldn't, because for all his power and wealth, Maya had seen what no one else in his world could. The truth that lived in the shadows of his success. And now it was everywhere. On social media, the story had gone viral. Hashtags trended: number triplets and truth, number Christopher Lane exposed, number justice for Kioma. Old photos began to surface. Raymond's student gallery appearances. One blurry picture of him and Kioma at a beach in Savannah, smiling like the future belonged to them. His PR advisor had tried to suppress the leaks, but once something hits the bloodstream of the internet, no amount of money can pull it back out. Then came the call. Private. Untraceable. A voice he hadn't heard in years. You always knew she had fire in her, said the man on the other end. It was Amma, the same private investigator Christopher had hired months ago to look into Maya when she first sent the letter. What do you want? Christopher asked coldly. I just wanted to hear how shame sounds on your tongue. Amma replied, and to tell you if you try to silence her again, I'll leak the rest. Christopher's voice turned to ice. You broke contract. I broke a mirror. One you were too coward to face. The line went dead. Christopher slammed the phone down. Meanwhile, across town, Maya and Kioma sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by a fortress of paperwork. Photos, handwritten letters, birth certificates, sketches, emails, and printouts of old messages Raymond had sent during their brief, passionate love story. They were building a timeline. Maya took a red pen and circled dates on a calendar. He disappeared in March. You gave birth in November. That's 9 months exact. Kioma nodded. I remember every second of it. A knock interrupted them. This time, it was no detective. It was their neighbor, Miss Ruby, a retired teacher in her 70s who often brought over lemon pie when she could afford it and advice even when she couldn't. I saw you on TV, baby, she said, nodding at Maya. Lord, you spoke like someone carrying every silenced woman in this neighborhood on your back. Maya smiled gently. I was shaking. Well, your voice didn't, Ruby said. You made us proud. She placed a brown envelope on the table. I dug this out last night. Old flyer from the art co-op downtown. I remember Raymond back when he was just a boy with paint on his jeans and stars in his eyes. DEF CON. Inside was a folded pamphlet. Raymond Muel. Solo exhibit. 2012. There was a photo. His arm around Kioma's shoulder. His smile unguarded. Maya's fingers trembled. Why are you doing this for us? Kioma asked, touched but confused. Ruby chuckled. Because someone once let a man run off with my child's future too. I didn't fight back. Spent 30 years wondering if I should have. Don't let that be your story. Later that day, the kids returned from school early. Their teacher, Miss Howard, had sent them home after noticing Zoe crying during math. They were whispering, Zoe told Maya. The other kids. They said Daddy didn't want us. Maya's heart cracked, but she held it together. Carter, always quiet, pulled something from his backpack, a folded piece of construction paper. I drew our family, he said. The picture was simple. Stick figures, Kioma with her curly hair, Maya holding Zoe's hand, and at the edge, a tall man with big eyes, standing apart. That's him? Maya asked. Carter nodded. I don't know what color tie he wears, but I drew him looking at us. Maya knelt, her throat thick. He'll see this. I promise. That night, Adriana Monroe held a wine glass she hadn't sipped from. Her phone buzzed nonstop, but she ignored it. The footage of the wedding disruption had been replayed, over and over. Her father, the senator, was furious. Her mother cried all morning. worried about the family name. But Adriana was focused on one question. What else is he hiding? She opened her laptop, found the file her brother had sent, the one showing that Christopher had hired a PI. She scrolled through the notes, paused at a photo of Kioma with the children, then another, a younger Raymond, hands smudged in charcoal. The resemblance was undeniable. She shut the laptop, stood in silence, then said aloud, I can't marry a man who erases children. Tomorrow, she would announce the engagement was off, but tonight, she wept for the life she thought she had. Christopher Lane stood in the Lane Foundation boardroom, surrounded by 14 members of his hand-picked executive team. The table was silent. On the monitor at the end of the room, a paused news clip from the disrupted wedding hovered. Maya, frozen mid-sentence, eyes blazing, defiance etched into every line of her face. The board members glanced at each other, uncertain whether to speak. It wasn't just a public embarrassment. It was a revelation none of them had expected. I want a path forward, Christopher said at last, voice low, cold. Renee Callahan, his PR director, cleared her throat. Public sympathy is currently leaning toward Maya. She's composed, articulate. The narrative has shifted. Not a scandal, but a reckoning. If we attack her, it will backfire. Christopher's jaw tightened. Renee pressed on. We've done polling overnight. 73% of likely voters say they believe Maya's story over Lane's. One of the board members, an older white man with a senator's golf tan, leaned forward. Christopher, we backed you because of your clean record, your perfect image. This is a problem. You want a confession? Christopher snapped. Fine. I left her. I walked away. But I was 24, poor, angry. My mother had just died. I had no future. You had children, Renee said softly. That silenced him. After the meeting, Christopher returned to his office and locked the door. He paced, knuckles white. The pressure was mounting, but it wasn't the media that haunted him. It was the girl's eyes. Zoe. She had his grandmother's eyes. Deep set, almond-shaped, holding too much sorrow for someone so young. He poured another drink, but set it down untouched. He couldn't outrun it anymore. He reached for the safe behind a canvas on the wall. Inside was a box of old journals. One had Kioma's name scratched on the cover. He hadn't opened it in years. Page after page brought the past flooding back, late nights painting in her tiny apartment. The smell of cinnamon from her tea. The sound of her singing to her unborn children when she thought he was asleep. He closed the journal, leaned back in his chair. Somewhere deep down, Raymond Whale still lived. Across town, Maya received a call from a woman named Gabrielle Thornton, host of Voices Unheard, a nationally syndicated radio show focused on racial justice and family advocacy. We'd like to have you on, Gabrielle said. Liv. Maya hesitated. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Gabrielle's voice was kind. You already stepped into history. This is just the next step. I am Selv. That night, Maya appeared on the show. Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, it grew stronger. I didn't come forward to shame anyone, she said. I came forward because silence has a cost. My sister paid it for 9 years. My nieces and nephew lived with the weight of not knowing why they were invisible. She paused, then added, You don't get to choose what parts of your past survive. If you walk away from your children, they still exist. They still wait. And one day, they will knock. The phone lines lit up. A grandmother in Tulsa wept, saying her own daughter had been abandoned the same way. A father in Baltimore called in and said he'd just found the courage to reconnect with his estranged son. The show trended nationwide within an hour. Meanwhile, Adriana Monroe sat in a private room with her parents. The wedding dress hung behind her like a monument to what might have been. I'm not going back to him, she said. Her father, Senator Monroe, was livid. Do you know what this will do to our optics? You walk away now. The opposition paints us as fractured. I'd rather be fractured than complicit. Adriana replied. Her mother, usually silent in such confrontations, stood and walked over. We raised you to recognize character. You did the right thing. Adriana smiled faintly. Then I want to help the others who've been silenced. Women like Kioma, children like Zoe. The senator scoffed. What are you going to do? Launch a fund for fatherless kids? Adriana stared at him. Maybe I will. Elsewhere in the city. Kioma sat on the edge of the children's bed, tucking them in. Zoe looked up and whispered, Will Daddy come now? Kioma hesitated. I don't know, baby. Carter rolled over. He saw us. Auntie said so. He did. Kioma said softly. He saw you. And people can't unsee the truth. After they drifted off, Maya sat beside her sister on the couch. You did good today, she said. Kioma looked at her. You mean you did? Maya shook her head. No. I opened the door. You're the one who held it open all these years. Kioma's eyes filled with tears. But they didn't fall. Then came the email. It was from Christopher. The subject line, We need to talk. Maya stared at it. I think he's ready, she said aloud. Kioma swallowed. Ready for what? To meet them. The sun had barely risen when Maya found herself sitting in a quiet cafe tucked into a shaded street near downtown Atlanta. It was neutral ground, public, safe, and just anonymous enough for what was about to happen. Christopher Lane walked in exactly on time. No entourage, no suit, no press shadow, just a gray sweater, dark jeans, and the air of a man who hadn't slept in days. Maya stood, not to greet him but to mark her place. He nodded, sat across from her, and said nothing at first. The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of the espresso machine and the clink of ceramic cups. Finally, he spoke. You didn't have to do it that way. Maya met his gaze, calm. I gave you a letter, you burned it. He looked away. I thought ignoring it would make it disappear, he said. Maya leaned in. They're not a mistake, Christopher. They're children. Your children. I know. 2 words, quiet, full of gravity. Maya blinked. What? I know, he repeated. I knew the moment I saw her. Zoe. She has my mother's eyes. His voice cracked slightly. It was the first fracture of sincerity Maya had ever seen in him. She folded her hands together. So why did you run? He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for 9 years. I was a coward. I thought walking away was mercy. I thought, if I wasn't in their life, I couldn't disappoint them. You disappointed them anyway. He nodded. I know. A long pause. Christopher looked down at his hands. I was nobody back then. No money. No name. I had just lost my mother, and I thought Kioma would be better off without me. You let her raise 3 children alone, Maya said, voice sharp now. She worked double shifts, slept on floors, skipped meals. She shielded them from every cruel question while you built skyscrapers and gave speeches about family values. I didn't think I could be a father, he whispered. You didn't even try. Christopher flinched. Maya looked out the window for a moment, grounding herself. Then she said, She never wanted your money. She just wanted honesty. Christopher's voice softened. Does she hate me? She's too tired to hate, Maya replied. She's been surviving while you were reinventing yourself. He looked up. I want to meet them. Maya's eyes narrowed. Why now? Because I saw them. And I saw what I lost. I don't expect forgiveness, but I owe them the truth. Maya sat back. It's not up to me. It's up to Kioma. He nodded. Then I'll ask her. That evening, Maya returned to the apartment, carrying takeout from a family-owned soul food spot Kioma liked. Cornbread, collard greens, fried catfish. She set the bags on the counter and turned to her sister, who was braiding Zoe's hair while humming a lullaby. He wants to meet them, Maya said. Kioma's hands froze in mid-braid. Zoe looked up. Who? Your dad? Maya said gently. Zoe's eyes widened. Really? Kioma was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she said. Where? Wherever you say, Maya answered. He said he wants to talk to you first. Alone. I was. Keoma tied off Zoe's braid, kissed her on the head, then walked into the bedroom without a word. Maya followed. Inside, Keoma sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. I don't know what to say, she said. Say what's true, Maya replied. That's all you've ever done. I'm scared. Of him? Of what the kids will think if he leaves again. Maya knelt in front of her. You've already raised them without him. You're not asking for help. You're offering the truth. That's a gift, not a weakness. The next day, Keoma agreed to meet. It was at a small park near their old neighborhood. A place they used to walk when she was pregnant and hopeful. The same place Raymond used to sit with a sketchbook and draw strangers from afar. Christopher was already there when she arrived, sitting on a bench under an old oak tree. He stood as she approached. He looked older than she remembered, less polished, more real. Hi, he said softly. She didn't speak, just looked at him. After a moment, he gestured to the bench. They sat, 3 feet between them. I've rehearsed 1,000 versions of this, he said. None of them felt honest. Try anyway, Keoma said. I failed you, he began. And I failed them. I was scared. Of being a bad father. Of not being enough. And I convinced myself that disappearing was better than disappointing you. Is not 21. She shook her head. You disappointed me anyway. He nodded. I know. They sat in silence. I still have the bracelet, she said. The one you made with the shell. Anaya sleeps with it under her pillow. He blinked hard. She knows? They all know. He swallowed. Do they hate me? They're kids. They don't know how to hate yet. They just want answers. Christopher looked up at her, tears brimming in his eyes. Will you let me meet them? She stared at him a long time. Finally, she said, once. As a man, not as a brand. No cameras, no handlers, just you. I promise. And if you ever walk away again, don't ever come near us. I won't. Keoma stood. So, he said. Tomorrow? 18 Hevagain. She nodded once. As she walked away, he called after her, Keoma. She turned slightly. I'm sorry. She didn't smile. But she didn't walk faster, either. Tomorrow would be the day their children met their father, not the one they saw on TV, the one who vanished. The morning sun filtered gently through the apartment's thin curtains. Maya stood in the kitchen, pouring orange juice into 3 mismatched plastic cups. Behind her, the triplets sat at the dining table, all freshly dressed, their energy oddly contained as if they understood something big was about to happen. Zoe fidgeted with the collar of her pink shirt. Is he really coming? Awaz. Yes, sweetie, Keoma said gently as she came in from the hallway. Today, Carter asked. What are we supposed to call him? Maya leaned over. Call him whatever you want. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to say. Anaya looked up from her coloring book. Will he look like us? Keoma paused, then answered. A little. A nervous silence fell over the room, until Zoe broke it with a quiet, what if he doesn't like us? Maya knelt in front of her. That's not possible. There's nothing about you not to like. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Keoma took a deep breath and walked to the door, heart pounding. Her hand trembled slightly as she turned the knob and opened it. There he was, Christopher Lane. No press, no security. Just him in a gray sweatshirt, jeans, and a hesitant smile. His eyes darted nervously inside, like a boy sent to apologize to a stranger's parents. Hi, he said quietly. Keoma stepped aside. Come in. He walked in slowly. The kids stared. He stared back. 3 sets of dark eyes, wide with wonder and suspicion. They sat perfectly still, like deer in tall grass. Christopher stopped a few feet away and crouched to their level. His voice was gentle, uncertain. Hi there, I'm Chris. Zoe tilted her head. You're the guy from the TV. He nodded, smiling softly. Yes, but I'm also your father. Carter's brow furrowed. Why didn't you come before? Christopher's smile faltered. He sat down on the edge of the couch, suddenly smaller in his own body. I was scared, and I thought staying away would protect you. But I was wrong. I missed everything important. Anaya stared at him. Did you know about us? I did, he said. Not at first. But once I found out, I didn't do the right thing. And I'm sorry. Zoe asked. Are you going to leave again? Christopher's throat tightened. No. Not unless you tell me to. The triplets exchanged glances, a private conversation passing between them in silence. Then Carter said, You want to see what we made? He ran to the corner and grabbed a folder filled with drawings. Zoe joined him, carrying the family picture from days before. Anaya handed him a crumpled paper heart. Christopher accepted each item like sacred artifacts, his hands trembling. This is beautiful, he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. The next hour passed in cautious discovery. They asked about his job, his favorite ice cream, whether he could cook, he could not, and if he liked dogs. Anaya climbed onto the arm of the chair next to him. Zoe sat at his feet. Carter, still reserved, watched from across the room but listened to every word. Maya and Kioma sat quietly in the kitchen, listening. She's studying him, Maya whispered, watching Zoe. Kioma nodded. They're trying to figure out if he's real. Christopher glanced over and caught Maya's eye. There was no apology in his face now, just humility, gratitude. After lunch, grilled cheese and tomato soup, which Maya insisted on making herself. Christopher asked gently, Can I take them to the park sometime? Kioma tensed. They're not ready for that, Maya said before she could. Christopher nodded. Of course. One step at a time. Before he left, he crouched down again and looked at them seriously. I don't expect you to love me right away, he said. But I promise to show up. However you'll let me. I'll be here. The triplets said nothing. But when he stood, Zoe hugged him quickly, shyly, then ran off before she could change her mind. That evening, the apartment felt different, quieter, heavier. Kioma sat beside Maya on the couch. You think I did the right thing? Maya nodded slowly. You gave them a father. Whether he's worth the title is still up to him. Kioma looked toward the window, where the city lights blinked. Zoe smiled when he left. She whispered. Yeah, Maya said. I saw it too. Later that night, Christopher returned to his penthouse. He removed his jacket, loosened his collar, and stared at his own reflection in the darkened glass of the floor-to-ceiling windows. He had faced a jury far more terrifying than any investor board or political hearing, and he had not been thrown out. But he knew this was only the beginning. In the quiet, he pulled out his phone. A new contact. Zoe, Carter, Anaya, kids. He saved the name with trembling fingers. Tomorrow, he would send them a book he used to love as a child. Not because it would fix anything, but because it was a start. The package arrived late morning, an unassuming cardboard box wrapped in brown paper with careful handwriting that read simply, For Zoe, Carter, and Anaya. Maya opened the door to retrieve it, unsure at first whether to bring it inside. Kioma noticed and walked over, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Is that from him? She asked. Maya nodded. I didn't tell him our address, Kioma said, voice low. I did, Maya admitted. Only after I saw how he looked at them yesterday. Kioma stared at the box for a long moment, then quietly took it and brought it into the living room where the kids were building a pillow fort. Mail call, she announced, trying to sound upbeat. The kids sprang up. Carter tore at the tape while Zoe carefully removed the string and tucked it into her collection of tiny treasures. Anaya peered over their shoulders. Inside was a worn hardcover copy of The Little Prince, a handwritten note tucked between its pages. Zoe picked it up first and read aloud. When I was a boy, this was the book that helped me understand that love is about presence, not perfection. I hope you'll let me be present, Dad. The word Dad made all three children stop and look at each other. He called himself Dad, Carter said. Does that mean we can call him that now? Zoe asked, her voice tentative. Kioma knelt beside them. You can call him whatever feels right to you. They nodded, but no one said anything else. Instead, Carter flipped open the book and began to read aloud. Slowly, carefully. Christopher had underlined certain sentences in pencil. One read, "You become responsible, forever, for what you have tamed." Later that afternoon, Christopher called. Kioma answered. "Thank you for the book," she said simply. "I wasn't sure what else to send," he replied. "I just wanted them to know. I'm thinking about them. Every day. They know." A pause. "Can I stop by this weekend?" he asked. "Maybe take them to the aquarium? I'd like to start with something simple. Educational. Safe." Kioma hesitated. "I'll ask them." "I understand," he said quickly. "No pressure." After she hung up, she turned to Maya. "I didn't say no." "You didn't say yes either," Maya said. Kioma shrugged. "Because I still don't know how I feel." Maya nodded. "That's allowed." The next day, news broke that one of Christopher's companies was being investigated for misuse of campaign donations linked to real estate developments in low-income neighborhoods. The headlines weren't as explosive as the wedding scandal, but they struck a deeper chord. People who had once seen him as untouchable now questioned his ethics. A few media outlets tried to pin the distraction of his personal life as the reason, but others praised his recent appearance at a community cleanup project where he had brought the triplets quietly in tow. No cameras, no speeches, just a man picking up trash with his kids on a humid Atlanta afternoon. That image was caught, not staged. A passerby snapped a photo and uploaded it. Christopher Lane seen bonding with children during volunteer work. It went viral in a different way, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Adriana Monroe saw the photo on her phone while riding in a car with her father. The senator was on another tirade about media manipulation, but she tuned him out. Her eyes lingered on Zoe's face. There was no mistaking it. That child had Lane blood, her father noticed. "He's playing the long game," he muttered. Adriana turned to him. "Maybe he's just finally showing up," the senator scoffed. "Men like him don't change." "Maybe," she said. "But maybe women like Kioma do." Back at the apartment, Maya helped the kids pack for the aquarium trip backpacks, snacks, extra water bottles. "I want to show him the octopus," Anaya said, bouncing with excitement. "Do you think he'll buy us toys?" Carter asked cautiously. "He doesn't have to buy you anything," Maya replied. "Just be there. That's more than enough." As they headed out the door, Kioma paused on the threshold. Her hand rested on the doorknob for a long moment, before she turned to Maya. "Why does this feel scarier than the wedding?" Maya smiled. "Because this time, it's real." Christopher arrived in a modest rental SUV. No driver, no flashy car, just him. The triplets ran toward him. Zoe reached him first and hugged him without hesitation. Carter followed slowly but didn't resist when Christopher rested a hand on his shoulder. Anaya held out the book. "Will you read it to us later?" she asked. He knelt. "Every night, if you want." At the aquarium, Christopher walked behind them, watching the wonder in their faces as they pressed against the glass tanks and pointed out sharks, stingrays, and glowing jellyfish. He bought them cotton candy and let them lead him through each exhibit. At one point, Zoe grabbed his hand. He looked down, startled, but didn't let go. By the time the sun began to dip, they were all tired. Carter had fallen asleep in the back seat of the SUV. Zoe leaned against her sister. Anaya still clutched the little prince. Christopher carried them one by one to the apartment. When he turned to leave, Kioma followed him out. "You did well," she said softly. He looked at her with something close to hope. "Can I see them again?" She didn't answer at first. Then finally, "Yes." As he got into the car, Maya watched from the window, arms folded. "This isn't a fairy tale," she murmured to herself. But for the first time in a decade, it wasn't a tragedy either. The autumn air had taken on a crispness that hinted at change. Yellowing leaves danced along the sidewalks of South Atlanta, clinging to the last of summer. Inside the apartment, Maya was helping Zoe with her science project paper mache planets, suspended by fishing wire from a bent coat hanger when her phone buzzed with a text from Christopher. Chris, I got a call from my father's lawyer. He wants to meet. Says it's urgent. About the trust. Maya narrowed her eyes. Kioma glanced over from the kitchen table, where she was sorting medical bills into neat but steadily growing piles. Is it about the kids? She asked. Maya hesitated. Maybe. The Lane family's estate is complicated. Later that evening, Christopher arrived at the apartment with a look that was all business. He greeted the kids warmly. Zoe ran to show him her planets, but his eyes were tight with unease. I need to talk to Kioma, he said. Privately, Maya nodded and ushered the triplets into their room with a whispered promise of popcorn and a movie. Christopher sat across from Kioma on the living room couch, a man visibly uncomfortable in his own success. My father wrote them into the trust, he began. Kioma blinked. The triplets? Yes. Quietly. Years ago. Apparently. After he saw a photo of Zoe online by accident. Said she looked like Grandma Ruth. Kioma stiffened. He's never met them. No. But he believes they're mine. And he wants to protect them. Even if I don't deserve it. She crossed her arms. What's the catch? Christopher sighed. There's a clause. If they're officially acknowledged as heirs, it triggers a review of my holdings. The board will question everything. Stocks, votes, development deals, it could all unravel. And I want to acknowledge them anyway. Kioma looked at him hard. Why now? He held her gaze. Because they deserve to have their name in places where it matters. Not as secrets. Not as shadows. Her throat tightened. She thought of all the years she'd spent feeding them from food pantries, watching them outgrow shoes before she could afford new ones, filling out school forms alone. Will it hurt your career? She asked. Yes, he said honestly. But I've built enough. I can lose some of it. She sat back. So what happens next? We go public. I'll make a statement. And I'll ask the trust to be amended officially. Kioma nodded slowly. Then do it. But only if it's for them, not for show. That weekend, the story broke. Billionaire Christopher Lane confirms he is father to Atlanta triplets. They are my legacy. Public response was swift and divided. Some hailed him as brave for stepping forward. Others accused him of opportunism. Political blogs speculated on how it would affect his rumored Senate bid, but none of it mattered to the three children watching their father's face on the TV, holding tightly to each other as he said, I was wrong to stay silent. But I won't be silent anymore. The next day, an envelope arrived at the apartment. Inside, 3 embossed cards, each with the Lane family crest, and a formal invitation. The Lane family dinner, invitation to Zoe, Carter, and Anaya Williams. Friday, 6 p.m., private estate. Maya read it aloud. Kioma's jaw tightened. They've never even acknowledged me. And now they want to host the kids like it's some kind of photo op? Maya gently replied. Or maybe it's just their way of stepping out of the shadow too. Oh day. Zoe was already twirling in front of the mirror, imagining the dress she might wear. Can I have sparkles? She asked. Kioma stared at her daughter, the girl who once cried because she thought her skin was the reason Santa never brought her what she asked for. Yes, Kioma whispered. You can have all the sparkles. Friday came fast. The Lane estate loomed like a castle over the outskirts of the city, marble pillars, ivy-wrapped balconies, security gates that hissed open at their approach. Maya had borrowed a dress from a friend. Kioma wore the same navy blouse she wore to church on Easter. The children looked like royalty, pressed shirts, polished shoes, small hands clutching each other for courage. Inside, the house smelled of jasmine and lemon polish. Staff moved quietly around silver platters and flickering candelabras. Then, from the top of the grand staircase, came a woman, tall, regal, steel-gray hair in a perfect bun. Christopher's stepmother, Evelyn Lane. She descended with poise and approached the children. Her voice was cool, but clear. Welcome. You must be Zoe, Carter, and Anaya. Zoe clung to Kioma's leg. Carter stepped back, but Anaya, bold as ever, stepped forward and said, Are you our grandma? Evelyn's face twitched surprise. Then something softer. I suppose I am. She knelt, smoothing her long dress as she met their eyes. You are very brave, she said. All three of you. Christopher appeared behind her, watching quietly. For the first time, he looked like a son. Dinner was quiet at first. The children whispered among themselves. Evelyn asked Carter about his love of space. Zoe talked about books. Anaya asked if the house had a slide. It did not. Then, unexpectedly, Evelyn turned to Kioma. I've followed your story, she said, and I owe you an apology. We all do. Kioma blinked. Why? Because we let silence do our work for us. And silence is a poor servant. Kioma nodded, her throat tight. After dinner, the children ran outside to explore the garden. Christopher watched them from the window. They're incredible, he murmured. Maya joined him. They always were. You just didn't see it. He turned to her. Thank you for forcing me to. As the night ended and coats were gathered, Zoe ran back and whispered something in Evelyn's ear. The woman blinked, surprised, then smiled faintly. What did she say? Maya asked on the way home. Evelyn looked out at the stars and replied softly. She asked if I could read to her next time. The following Monday, Maya found herself sitting alone in a downtown coffee shop with a laptop open and her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She was drafting a piece for The Atlantic, a personal essay titled, My Sister Raised a Legacy in the Shadows. Gabrielle Thornton from Voices Unheard had pitched the idea, and after some hesitation, Maya agreed, not for herself, but for the truth. Outside the window, Atlanta bustled with its usual rhythm. Buses wheezed past. Students spilled from classrooms. Professionals hurried in suits with earbuds and coffee. But inside, the shop was quiet, almost reverent. Her cursor blinked. She typed, For years, I watched my sister carry a truth so heavy it warped her back. Her voice, her hope. I watched her pour everything she had into 3 small souls who carried the face of a man who had vanished like steam. She didn't curse him. She didn't chase him. She just survived. And in surviving, she built something stronger than revenge. She built love without condition. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she didn't stop typing. Meanwhile, at the Lane Foundation offices, Christopher sat with Evelyn and a team of legal advisors. The air was thick with tension. Not from conflict, but from the gravity of what they were finalizing. A public restructuring of the family trust. Each child will have their own secured account, the lawyer explained. Assets will be placed in a blind trust until they're 18. Educational provisions, healthcare, protections from board interference. Evelyn reviewed the documents in silence. Finally, she looked up. And their mother? Christopher cleared his throat. Kioma's name will be added to the Family Trust Advisory Board. If she accepts. The room paused. Is that wise? One advisor asked. She's not trained for this level of governance. She raised 3 heirs with no help from us, Evelyn said coldly. I believe that qualifies her more than most of you sitting here. That ended the debate. Across town, Kioma and the children were visiting Maya's old church, a modest, creaky building with faded red pews and gospel echoes still in its walls. Reverend Harris had insisted on seeing the triplets after seeing the news. These babies were prayed into being, he told the congregation, and we gon' make sure they're not praised just because their daddy's rich. No, sir, we gon' praise their mother, who fed them when there wasn't food, clothed them when there wasn't money, and carried them when the world said they weren't worth the lift. The church stood and clapped. Zoe looked up, confused, then smiled. Carter buried his face in Kioma's side. Anaya waved like a tiny queen. After the service, a woman approached Kioma with a manila envelope. I work for the state archives, she said. When I saw your story, I remembered this. Inside was a photocopy of a journal entry, written by Christopher's mother in 1993. Raymond has a light in him. I pray he finds someone who sees it. Kioma held the paper close to her chest. That night, at the Lane estate, Evelyn surprised everyone by inviting the children for a private dinner. No press, no cameras, just family. The table was smaller this time. Just the triplets, Evelyn, and Christopher. Carter, shy as always, surprised everyone when he asked Evelyn a question. "Did you know my dad when he was a kid?" Evelyn paused, then smiled. "Yes. I used to chase him around this very garden. He used to hide under the big magnolia tree when he was scared." "Was he scared a lot?" Zoe asked. "Sometimes," Evelyn admitted. "Big hearts tend to be," Anaya added. "I'm not scared of anything." Everyone laughed, but Evelyn leaned in. "That means your heart is still growing, and that's a good thing." After dinner, Christopher brought out a box of photos, old family albums his mother had kept. The triplets looked through them in awe. "That's you?" Zoe asked, pointing to a photo of a teenage Raymond, shirtless and grinning on a dusty Savannah beach. He laughed. "Yeah. Back before I wore suits every day. This is not being diced. Can we keep some?" Carter asked. Christopher hesitated, then nodded. "You can have them all. They belong to you more than they ever belonged to me." When it was time to leave, Evelyn hugged each child. Her touch was firm, warm, unfamiliar but sincere. "To Kioma," she said quietly. "Thank you for not raising them to hate us." Kioma looked her dead in the eye. "I raised them to love themselves." That was enough. In the coming weeks, the story faded from national headlines. But in local communities, in quiet homes, in whispered family conversations, it continued to echo. People asked themselves who they had left behind, what stories they'd buried, what truths they needed to confront. And in a modest apartment on the south side, 3 children slept peacefully, knowing their questions were finally being answered. Not all of them, but enough. In the living room, Maya put the finishing touches on her article. She ended it with one sentence: "Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just shows up." It began with a voicemail. Maya was walking home from the grocery store, arms full of paper bags, when her phone buzzed. She balanced it awkwardly against her shoulder, expecting a call from a source for her next article. But the message that played made her stop cold on the sidewalk. A man's voice, older, southern drawl. "I don't know who you think you're helping, Miss Williams, but you need to stop. Some families keep their power for a reason. Dig too deep, and you might not like what you find." She replayed it twice before slowly lowering the phone. That evening, she sat across from Christopher at a coffee shop near the Capitol, where he was meeting with advisors on a potential policy platform focused on education and youth development. But now, she slid the phone across the table and hit play. Christopher listened without speaking, then leaned back slowly, expression unreadable. "Do you recognize the voice?" Maya asked. "I have my suspicions," he muttered. "There are still board members, old money types who believe blood should only flow in one direction." She narrowed her eyes. "This is a threat." "See. It's intimidation," he corrected. "An old game played by frightened men. But I'm not playing anymore." Maya studied him. "Are you sure?" Christopher nodded. "This isn't about my image now. It's about my children. No one silences their story again." Back at the apartment, Kioma sat the children down with a new set of books, an introduction to Black inventors and trailblazers. Zoe flipped through a page about Bessie Coleman. "She flew planes?" she asked. Kioma smiled. "She soared, even when people told her she couldn't." Carter looked up. "Are we going to be in books one day?" Kioma paused. "Maybe. If your story helps someone else be brave." That night, Maya sent a copy of the voicemail to Gabrielle Thornton. Within 24 hours, it aired as part of a special segment titled "The Cost of Truth: When Power Pushes Back." The episode lit up social media.